Unit 1 has been our introduction to functions. We've looked at functions in an equation, in a table, in a graph, and now in words. So what we're doing in 1.4, which we got started on Wednesday, is we're given a whole bunch of words, right? And what we're ultimately doing is we are finding the formula. And then once we find the formula, it's a lot like 1.1. And I get it. The hardest part is creating the formula, right? So what I told my 9:30 class was if it's something that you're not seeing and it's a little muddied waters today, I would recommend reprinting 1.4 notes without it all filled in and then practicing it over and over and over and over again until you can work through the notes without looking at the filled in notes. You can use the filled in notes to get you there, but you're not going to get better at it until you just do it over and over and over again, which I know you'd rather me have a magic wand that I could just do. Sorry, that does not exist. All right. So what we started out in 1.4 is we looked at example 1 and example 2 and we created a formula. And we found a number. This was called something specific. Does anybody remember what this was called? That you have to pay this regardless. Fixed cost. Then this is whatever it is per month, per item, per whatever. So in this example, it was $33 per month. This would be what we call the variable cost, which makes sense because it has the variable along with the cost per whatever that item is. Same thing here. We had the fixed cost, and that was how much we spent on a whole bunch of electronics. And then we added to that our cost per month. This was the cable. This is called the variable cost. This is called the fixed cost, okay? Now, when we left off, we were on example 3. We had defined the function in the variable, which is total cost and number of widgets, okay? So, if you will look up here, we've read through a lot of this on Wednesday, but I really want to focus on this sentence right here because it's telling us how to create the formula. It says to find the total cost, and if you look down here, that's what we had defined the function as. So to find the total cost, it tells us we will multiply, and we are going to multiply the variable cost times the fixed cost. So we will multiply the, wait a minute. Okay, so we will multiply the variable cost by the number of items. That's what I was looking for. So these are the two things that we will multiply. And then we will add the fixed costs. Okay, so it's telling me to multiply what? The variable cost okay, so if I look above the variable cost, here's my variable. How much did that variable cost? $126. So that in the above example, variable cost would be 126 times the number of items, and that's your variable, plus your fixed costs. So this is the general formula. So I'm going to be looking for the numbers to plug into all this stuff. Okay. So that leads me to where they give me all my information for this example, which is right here. Suppose that a manufacturer of widgets has fixed costs of $5,000 per month. So what am I gonna put in place of fixed costs? $5,000. And that the variable cost is $16 per widget. So my variable cost is 16 per widget, and then I have to look at what I defined widgets to be, which is N. Okay, all right, so here's how we're going to write this, because it's asking us to find or use a formula, so I have to find the formula. All right, so total cost C is equal to the variable cost. How much does each widget cost? $16. And we're going to multiply that times the number of items. Look to where we defined function and variable. What did we call number of widgets? N. And then we will add to that the fixed cost. What's the fixed cost? $5,000. So there's my formula to find the total cost. So this is the formula for total cost C. Now, if you write this as 5,000 plus 16 in, that's okay. I don't care which order it is, okay? All right, now I'm going to ask a question. If I wanted to rewrite this formula, but I want to put this in functional notation. C at N. That's functional notation. And that equation is 16N plus 5,000. This is your total cost formula. So any question that asks me for total cost, this will be the formula that I use. Okay. Express using functional notation. All right, some of y'all missed this on the quiz. This problem's only asking for functional notation. It's not asking me to calculate anything. If there are 175 widgets, okay, so that means 175 either goes with C or N. Well, ask yourself, this is widgets. C deals with cost. So is this C equals 175? No. Widgets is N. So they're telling me that N is 175 widgets. All right, so now that I'm given this information, I want to write that in functional notation. What am I asking for? C at 175, because N, the variable, is what goes in the parentheses. It did not ask me to calculate anything. I'm done. Now, in part C, it's asking me to calculate. So there, it's saying calculate the total cost when there's 175 widgets. So my cost at 175 widgets. So now I'm going to use the formula that I created and take 16 times 175 plus 5,000. So C at 175. So go ahead and put that in your calculator and tell me what that cost would be. Now, this is all that this asks for, so I'm done. But I want to add a few additional things. If I asked you to explain this, the total cost of 175 widgets is $7,800, period. All you have to do is just rewrite that in words. All right. If we looked at this in graph form, what is expressed on the vertical axis? the function, which in this case is what? C, which is total cost. So I would label the vertical axis N, which is number of widgets. All right, if I wanted to put this into a table, what goes on top? That's your variable. I'm just gonna put with, because I'm running out of room. So then on bottom would be my total cost. Just a reminder of where all that stuff goes. Okay. All right. More of the same. All right. Example 4. We have some students that want to design a t-shirt for an upcoming dance. It will cost them $50 to get the design produced, then $15 for each t-shirt. Okay, so in all of these examples we've done so far, we have talked about and located the fixed cost and the variable cost. And I see 2 numbers, so I've got to determine which one's which. All right, so $50 is first. Is that your fixed or variable? Fixed. If you don't recognize that, the one that it says for each or $15 per t-shirt, that's always your variable cost. So this is our fixed cost. So that means then this is my variable cost. Now let's say we call our t-shirts T, lowercase t. Okay. So how would I show the variable cost? How would I show $15 per t-shirt? 15T. Because if T is 1 t-shirt, I only spend $15. If T is 2 t-shirts, 15 times 2 is $30, and so forth. Okay, so we have our fixed cost and our variable cost, which will help us then this formula that we looked at back here. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna also, okay, I'll start here. So it wants the total cost. So I'm gonna call the function C for total cost. And we already know when we said the variable cost is 15 times T, that means that we define the variable as T. And T is what? Number of shirts. Okay, so this says, what is the total cost if the students want only 10 t-shirts? Okay, well, first I need a formula. So I need to come up with my total cost formula. So I need the formula first. It did not ask me to do that, but I'm going to go ahead. I have to have it in order to find it when I have 10 t-shirts. Okay, so my cost. So I need the total cost, which we called C. And this is where we will do the variable cost per item plus the fixed cost. Okay, I don't want the answer to 10 t-shirts yet. I just want the formula. So what would that formula be? Here's your fixed costs. Here is your cost per shirt. Now, if you wrote this as 50 plus 15T, that's fine. How would I write C in functional notation? Okay, C at T. All right, so here's my formula. So now we want to find C at what? 10. They tell me 10 t-shirts. So we're gonna find C at 10, which would be 15 times 10 plus 50. So C at 10 is $200. This was the first question that was asked, okay? Again, it's not asking me to explain, but if I did, I would say the total cost of 10 t-shirts is $200, period. Okay? All right, now, this asks an additional question that we have not dealt with this before. What is the average price per t-shirt? So now we want to look at the average price per shirt. Okay, so here's what we know. We spent $200 for 10 shirts. Can you tell me what the cost was per shirt? Okay, somebody gave me 20. Tell me how you got that.
Divided by the amount.
What divided by what?
200 divided by 10.
Okay, so that is correct. So I'm gonna write that out though and say my average was, so it was 200. What is 200? My total cost. So we took the total cost and divided it by the number of shirts. So that was 200 divided by 10. So we know that the average cost was $20 per shirt. Now, I was purposeful on adding this right here, because I know a lot of you would just do 200 divided by 10, which is $20. You can get it right. But I know in part B, we're going to have to create another formula. All right. So now our formula is going to be a function P, which is the average price per shirt. So now my second equation, my function changes. It is P, which is the average price per shirt. And now my variable is N, and that is the number of students. All right, so now what we're doing is we are creating, and I'm going to do this in pink so you know that this goes with it. My average, which we are calling P, is equal to the total cost. Okay, in part A, that total cost was $200, but I need the general formula for that. All right, well, the total cost formula was 15T plus 50, right? This is your, I'll write it here, total cost formula. So where it says total cost, we're going to put this formula, but instead of 15T plus 50, our variable is now N. So now my numerator is 15N plus 50. And again, that's total cost divided by number of shirts, but now we're talking about number of students. So P at N is your total cost divided by number of students. So this, okay, here is total cost. That was my green function. this is your average price per shirt. So now we have two formulas, so when a question is asked, we have to know which it's asking for, okay? So part C, use functional notation and your answer from part B. So here's my answer from part B, so this is what we're gonna be using to determine the average price per t-shirt if 45 people. So it's 45 P or N? N, it's your number of students. So we're gonna do P at 45 equals. Now, how did I know to do P? Because it said average price, and that's what P is. So that's why we didn't do the total cost. So I'm gonna do 15 times 45 plus 50 divided by 45. Now, we're talking about an average price, so we're talking about money. Money goes out to 2 decimal places. Normal rounding rules apply. So when we bought 10 t-shirts, they were $20 per shirt. Now, if 45 students want shirts, we're buying 45 shirts. How much are they gonna cost us per shirt? Fingers on calculators should be going. 16.1. Okay, so if we go out in money, it'd just be 11 cents. So $16.11 per shirt. So obviously, the more you buy, the cheaper the shirts get, which is pretty typical. Total cost formula we had to create. Average price per shirt we had to create. Okay. All right. Number 5. All right. 5 requires a little bit more work. I will give you the hint that in WebAssign, there is a problem number 8 in WebAssign that is similar to this one. So when you get to that one in WebAssign, you'll want to follow this example. Okay. All right, you own a motel with 30 rooms and have a pricing structure that encourages rentals of rooms in groups. So 1 room rents for $75, 2 for $73, and in general, the group rate per room is found by taking $2 off the base of $75 for each extra room rented. Okay, so I'm going to create a table just so I can see what's going on here. I'm going to call N my number of rooms. And I'm going to call C the cost that the cost for renting that many rooms. Okay. All right. So if I rent 1 room, how much does it cost me? $75. 2 rooms? 3 rooms? All right, because it said $2 off for every additional room, okay? All right. So part A says, how much money do you charge if a group rents 3 rooms? So how much is charged per room? $71. $71 per room. That's the first question. Second question wants to know the total amount of money that you take in or the total amount it costs to rent 3 rooms. What would I do? So 3 rooms, $71, $71, $71. What's that total cost? What's the easiest way to do that? Multiply. $71, 3 rooms, 213.
Yeah.
Do 70 times 3, which is 210 plus $3 more. Okay. All right, now part B is where it takes a little bit of work to figure out this formula. Okay, so it says find a formula or use a formula to give the rate you charge C for each room if you rent in rooms to an organization. So basically, we're trying to figure out the formula. Okay, all right. And go to the back. We've had N, which was our number of rooms, C, how much it cost us. 1 room was $75. 2 rooms was 73, 3 rooms was 71. I'll go ahead and go a 4th one, which would be 69. Okay. Now, for every room rented, they're taking off how much? $2. So it makes sense that we would subtract 2 per room. This would be your, I'm going to put it in pencil so I can erase it. So for each one of these, $2 per additional room. Okay. Everybody okay with me so far? All right, so I need to figure out what goes here that when I subtract 2 times 1, it gives me 75. Because our first thought is to put 75 here, but if I take 75 minus 2 times 1, what does that give me? It gives me 73, which is down here. So I won't put 75 here. What minus, basically what minus 2 is 75? All right, so I know that works there. So let me see then if now the number of rooms is 2. I can't change my formula, so I would have to use 77 here. I can't have a different formula for every line. Is 77 minus 4, 73? Yep. Just as when N was 3, when N is 4, is 77 minus 6, 71? Yes. Is 77 minus 8, 69? Yes. So that tells us that we took C to be 77 minus 2 times this number is reflective of what N is. So that is my formula that we will use. Okay. And the one in WebAssign, if this is not, if it's still a little muddy, just follow what we did here. It's like very, very, very similar. Okay. All right. So it says use a formula. This is just asking me to write the formula. And we said that was C equals 77 minus 2N. All right. So that means my function is C, and C is your what? What was that? It was charge per room, right? So this is your charge per room. Because when we did our calculations, we got 75, 73, 71. That's our charge per room. Our variable is N, which represents what? Number of rooms. So this would be C at N. So this is the charge for renting so many rooms is, and then you plug it in and calculate. Or the charge, yeah, for renting 1 room, 2 rooms, whatnot. Okay. So this is the formula for your charge per room. Okay. Because in C, it wants us to find another formula. So it's not asking me to calculate anything. I'm gonna have another formula, which means we will have a different function. And we'll have to define variable. Okay. Oh, I like this. They give me R at N. So I know the function is what letter? R. Variable is N. So now I'm gonna go looking for what that is. So that gives the total revenue. So right there's my function, total revenue for renting in rooms. So N is still number of rooms. Okay, so let's think about this because it's not the same formula. We're going to have a different formula that's going to be R at N. Revenue. Okay. All right. So let's go back here and think this through. If I was calculating revenue, let's say for, I wanted the revenue for, I'll say 2 rooms. How would I find the revenue for 2 rooms with our table? I want to know specific numbers. So if somebody came, you're working the desk, somebody comes up and says, I want 2 rooms. And you would say, okay, you need to pay me. How would you figure out how much money they need to pay you? 2 rooms times what? 2 rooms was $73. So it's the charge per room times the number of rooms, right? So they owe you $146. Wish I could get those rates these days. Okay, so my revenue function is this times this. All right, so charge per room, but now I want the general formula. Hint, charge per room is what? 77 minus 2N. That's what we found in part A. So instead of putting a specific number, we're going to put the charge per room is found by 77 minus 2N times number of rooms. We call number of rooms what? N. So this formula is your total revenue. And I'm going to write this under here if you need it for your notes. So this is charge per room. This is number of rooms. Okay. Okay. Use functional notation to show the, if it says total revenue, am I using the formula from part B or part C? Part C, for renting a block of 5 rooms. So if I'm using the formula from part C, is 5 R or N? N. So I'm going to do R at 5 equals 77 minus 2 times N. N is 5 times 5. And you can just put it into your calculator like that. open parentheses. 77 minus 2 times 5, close parentheses, times 5, $335. If I asked you to explain, R is total revenue, so I would say the total revenue of 5 rooms is $335, period. Okay. All right. The extra practice. All right. Pawnee charges for electricity, water. Correctly say this word. Okay. Was refuse or refuse? I was getting myself stumped on that. So, and sewer in a monthly utility bill, they charge 11 cents per kilowatt of hour for electricity and $3.27 per 1,000 gallons of water. So 1,000 gallons of water is $3.27, 2,000 and so forth. So this is per 1,000. And we have a fee of $20.08 for refuse and sewer. All right, so we're all about the fixed cost and our variable cost. All right, so when you are reading these, where would you land with the fixed cost? Here's your hint. Variable cost is always the for each per item. What number there doesn't include that?
What do you think?
Okay, so my fixed cost is the $20.08. How many variables do I have? 2. So one of them is electricity. So I'm going to call that E. And that is your electricity. Now, how would I write that when we're dealing with 11 cents per kilowatt hour? It would be 11 cents times E. And then we have water. And that is $3.27 per 1,000. So if we had 1,000, we would put 1 there. If you were talking about 3,000, you would just put a 3 there. Okay, all right. So this says find the total bill. So we have our, oh, it gives us specifically. So we have 519 kilowatts of electricity and 7,000 gallons of water. All right, so we know it's our fixed cost plus 11 cents per kilowatt of electricity. So which of those numbers goes with E? This is your E. Plus $3.27 per 7,000 gallons of water. So put that into your calculator and tell me what my bill would be for the month. $6.06. If somebody gets that, can you confirm it or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, now that was an actual bill, but now what we're gonna do is we are going to write the formula for this. Now remember that formula is fixed costs plus variable costs. Fixed costs plus variable costs. All right, it tells me to use this. So what is my function called?
Monthly.
M, which is monthly. I heard somebody say that. This is your monthly bill. We've already talked about, we have the variable E, which is electricity. So we'll do that, and this is kilowatts per hour. And then we have water. And this is per 1,000 gallons, right? Gallons. Okay, so I know I have M at, so M at electricity, comma, water equals $20.08. That's my fixed cost, so I can write that number because that's not going to change. So this is your fixed costs. All right, plus, and how would I show my variable costs? These here are your variable costs. Okay. All right, now we are going to stop here. And stop this.